Welcome to Let's Bet, the show for folks who love betting on sports but hate losing money. I'll show you how to increase your sports betting bankroll by gaining confidence so that you can ultimately have the lifestyle that you deserve. I'm your host, Scott Pritchard, pro bettor, full-time, 31 years, founder of Pritchard'sPicks.com, home of Pritchard's Pick of the Day. Took third place in the Circa Invitational 1 year ago, currently in the top 9. They've expanded the field from 16 to 25. You can catch me each and every weekend in the Las Vegas Review-Journal. We're broadcasting live and worldwide each and every Friday, 1 to 1:30 Las Vegas time, on demand on Pritchard'sPicks.com and on your favorite podcast and video distribution platforms. To reach out to us, I would encourage you to email us at letsbet@Pritchard'sPicks.com. That's letsbet@Pritchard'sPicks.com. We're also going to share with you a coupon discount code, 20% off all picks and packages throughout the broadcast in the next 30 minutes. Stay tuned for that. It's applicable throughout the weekend. Now let's get started. My guest this week, a repeat offender, a repeat guest, back by popular demand, pro bettor from Texas, specializing in college football, point spreads, sides, totals, money lines, anything to do with college football, anything and everything you ever wanted to know about college football, but we're too afraid to ask. We're going to address today, including best bets, Paul Stone. Paul, welcome back to the show.
Well, Scott, great to be with you. I was with you about a month ago, and to get a repeat invitation, I consider a great honor. Season's rolling right along. Here we are in week 12. Next few weeks, we're going to find a lot out about this 12-team playoff field, the inaugural year of the 12-team college football playoff. So really looking forward to it and looking forward to the next half hour with you as well.
Well, again, the viewers have spoken. I listened. They had such positive things to say about you. I've only had one other guest back more than once, so this is quite a compliment to you, my friend, to have you back, but it's because you're back by popular demand. So I want to ask you specifically, what is your sports betting process on a week in, week out basis? Are you betting early? Are you betting late? Walk us through a typical week for Paul Stone.
Yeah, and first of all, Scott, I'll say, and you know this, and I'm sure most of your viewers and listeners do as well, everybody's an experiment of one. You know, this is the way that I do it. It's certainly not the only way. There are many ways to do it and to be proficient and good at it. But I'm a person who likes to bet early. I bet during, game week, like week 13, the games will be played Saturday, November 23rd, and I'll either be at Circa there on Sunday morning or some other location that offers early lines on college football, and I'll bet early. I want to get the best of the number. I want to be first in line, so to speak. So that's kind of a big part of my philosophy. And not only during the season in that manner, but I also bet a large volume of so-called college football games of the year where you bet in advance of the game, sometimes many months in advance. For instance, this current season, looking back to last season, first of all, I guess, when the Washington-Michigan National Championship game was concluded, probably 3 weeks later, there was an operator who listed about 8 games of the year. So I made my first game of the year wager relating to this season before the end of January. So it's pretty much a year-round endeavor. I would say by late April, I probably had 30 or 35 tickets, some on regular season win totals, but most of those on games of the year. And probably by the start of the season, probably had 70 to 75, either game of the year, regular season win total, and some other assorted bets as well. So I do a lot of stuff, in advance. That's where I feel my advantage is. I make my own numbers, many things involved in it, but you primarily compare your number to the house's number, and you take the side where you believe you have some advantages.
Let's talk specifically about CLV, closing line value. I'm a big proponent of beating the closing number. I feel long term. Short term, of course, anything is possible. But when it comes to sports betting philosophy, I do want to address this because I think long term, if on a Tuesday, as an example, I'm laying 3.5 and by Sunday it's 5, doesn't mean I'm going to win. But long term, if I'm getting a half point, point and a half, the best of it long term, I should win. What are your thoughts, Paul?
Absolutely. I mean, I hear people debating this topic. There's no debate. I mean, closing line value, I've said it this way before. You're not automatically going to win if you typically have closing line value. But if you don't have closing line value, more often than not, you have very little chance of winning. If that makes sense. So I think it's very, very important. It's very critical. I know you bet a lot of NFL, and I think closing line value, because the point spreads are so tight, is even more critical in the NFL than college, because in college we can obviously get a wide range of outcomes away from the actual posted point spread. But it's critical in both. In any sports, you have to get the best point spread, get the best price, whatever the case is. I'm always price shopping. I often say that I don't bet teams, I bet numbers. And I take a number of bets each week in college football and other sports as well, where I'm not even really referencing the team. I'm referencing my power rankings and looking at the teams, but I see the game as being somewhere, perhaps, let's say there's a game like that this week where I thought it would be between 14 and 17, somewhere in that pocket, but it's 18.5. So I take the underdog. So I do that quite often. So you got to have CLV, in my opinion, to win long term.
I really like how you wrap that up as far as how important to you, me, and most sharps and or unfair advantage professional sports bettors, how important CLV, closing line value, is, because it reminded me of a quote by the late, great Moses Malone, who was a Hall of Fame basketball player. And he said, because he was known as a hard worker, and he said, I'm not saying that you are going to be in the Hall of Fame or that you're going to make the NBA because you outwork anyone and everyone, but I guarantee you are never going to be at the highest level if you don't outwork the competition. So when you talk specifically about betting early, I'm used to betting Sunday, Monday, the week of, but you'll take it back to you. There is no off season. You're always reading, looking at the game of the year when someone posts a number. You said 30 to 35 bets before the season even starts. So boy, talk about an understatement when you say you bet early. Walk me through the rest of your work week in addition to betting exceptionally early. What does your work week in regards to handicapping college football entail?
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's ramped up. I specialize in 3 sports. I think most of us who do this professionally or at a high level for more than just recreation, we're going to be specialists, whether it's 2, 3, 1, 4, or 5 sports. We're not going to do everything under the sun. So the 3 sports that I handicap are college football, college basketball, and to a slightly lesser extent, professional golf. So the next 2 months of the year are very, very busy for me, with college basketball now starting in early November and December, with the overlap between college football and basketball seasons. Is just nonstop work. I got up this morning about 4:15. I went over, looked at last night, started off by looking at last night's college basketball line scores, making physical handwritten notes on the games and certain teams, and looking ahead to their next game. And I have the schedules all printed out about a week in advance. And I use a highlighter and I make a note to look at this team. I'm thinking I want this team if I can get 8.5 or more. I make notes like that based on their previous game. So I did all my basketball work first. And then I've got in a few contests this year as well. So I then looked at in these contests, as you know, Scott, not in all of them, but in most of them, the lines, or in many of them, I should say, the lines can be static, meaning that once they're posted, say on a Wednesday, they don't change. So the next thing I did this morning was I looked at the current lines and compared them to the static lines in the contest. You're not going to win a contest just by taking numbers that are off, so-called stale numbers, but it's certainly part of the process, part of your repertoire. You kind of have to pick and choose. So I did that next. Then I did weather checks on college football. There's not a whole lot of expectation of bad weather this week. There might be some snow tomorrow in Logan, Utah, when those Hawaii Rainbow Warriors come to play Utah State. But other than that, the weather looks pretty good. But I did weather checks. With it being Friday now, the weather forecasts are a little more reliable, 3 or 4 days out. You can oftentimes get information on a Tuesday when you're thinking about, looking ahead to a Saturday game and there's 90% chance of rain. Then when you get to Friday, there's 0% chance of rain. So really look closely at the weather just to be sure I'm not missing anything there. And then just read articles, go through Twitter, look at newspapers, look at ESPN, go back over box scores. I always have some games that I want to take a last look at. Certainly injury information. The later that you get in a college football or an NFL season, for that matter, the bumps and the bruises start to add up. So we have a lot of players right now, and especially at that key position of quarterback, who are, probable, questionable, doubtful, whatever. So you're trying to get a read on whether or not a player is going to play, or probably better put, what do you assess the probability that they're going to play? College football in many conferences now, they have injury reports that go out once or twice a week. I'm not all that ecstatic about these injury reports because I don't think questionable, probable, doubtful, out, I don't think they're well defined. And on top of that, there's no punitive component. I think these coaches are using these injury reports. So I don't put a ton of respect in it, but I am always trying to, figure out the best that I can, who might be in the game or outside the game. So that's just a little bit of a look at, what I did today on Friday, the day before. Most of the games will be played tomorrow on Saturday.
I appreciate you and your very, very, very thorough answer and being as transparent as you possibly can be without revealing too much of the secret sauce. But to me, everything affects everything else. And I look at anything and everything. Some things are weighted a little bit more. And a lot of the information that we discover or uncover is the same information the odds makers at the sports books have. So it's always delicate. And it's always a challenge, and it's so gratifying on a long-term consistent basis to beat the closing number and long-term to be a consistent winning duplicatable sports bettor. I want to talk to you specifically, Paul, as a pro bettor based out of Texas, that my experience has been in any endeavor in life that oftentimes someone at the top of their game, they didn't just start that way. They oftentimes came from nothing and they learned everything, I'm speaking personally, the hard way, the school of hard knocks where success is the only degree offered. I went from one of the world's worst sports bettors to now one of the world's best. And I just simply think I made more mistakes than your average Joe. Kind of a slow learner. The good news is I learn, just takes me a while. But now at this late date, I just feel that there is a duplicatable, proven process to my handicapping and to my long-term success. If you wouldn't mind sharing with me some of the mistakes that you made early and often and how you overcame it and what you've learned to ultimately be at the top of your game today.
Well, I think first of all, anybody who's been in this game as long as you and I have been, Scott, if they say they didn't go to the school of hard knocks, they're lying, because everybody goes there. You're going to learn from your lessons. And I think it's just like any endeavor in life. It's an unfortunate part of the process that you have to experience some downs to get to a positive point. But, that's just kind of the way it is. And, I like to say that you're not going to, I think we come into sports betting as young sports bettors, or at whatever age we enter the realm of sports betting. We come in with the opinion that we're a big time sports fan. We know all the players. We know all the teams, the personnel. We think we know we can talk a little ball, that type of thing. and we're smarter than everybody else. I mean, everybody thinks they're smarter than the other guy. So you come in with a little bit of a big head and quite a big appetite. You think you're going to knock them out. You go to Vegas the first time, you think you're going to win a bunch of money. And I always tell people, you're not going to knock them out. If you're going to be successful long-term, you're going to grind it out. You don't land the big swing, you don't land the big punch, and the sports book crumbles to its knees, never to open their doors again. You have to stick and move. You've got to use that jab. You've got to be conservative. You've got to get in and out. You've got to pick your spots. And as sports bettors, I think one of the things that you have to develop a knack for or a sense for is price sensitivity. It's not just knowing the teams and knowing the players. You got to know the numbers. I mean, we'll hear guys all the time say, hey, I'm taking the Vikings next week. Well, how do you know you're taking the Vikings? I mean, you don't even know the point spread. You should say, I'm taking the Vikings at -3.5 or less, or whatever the case might be. So you have to learn price sensitivity. You have to know what the numbers should be. And a large part of what I do in preparing for the Sunday openers in college football each week is I make my own lines, side and total. And I pretend that I'm the book. I mean, I act like I'm working for Derek Stevens, say at Circa, or Jay Cornegay at Westgate, and I'm making the number. I do it just not what I think the number should be, or want it to be or anything like that. I make the number as if I'm an employee of a house, and then I compare it to the number that they put out at these market-making books. So hopefully that answered your question. I feel like I rambled a little bit, but hopefully, put some information out there that might be valuable to somebody.
No chance of you rambling. In fact, as you were mentioning price sensitivity, it triggered something. I'm oftentimes at the sports book, and let's say in an NBA game, let's say a double-digit favorite is down 12 points, and I'll oftentimes hear someone say, wow, I'm getting on the favorite for the second half. And I just turn around and politely say, so if they made the second half number -100, would you bet the favorite? And they said no. I said, you cannot say what you're saying until you see the number, because the odds makers knows he's going to shade it, knowing that the favorite is favored by double digits, and right now they're down 12. So therein lies the rub. So I really appreciate you going full speed into your thought process, because like attracts like. Again, fellow sports bettors like you and I, we tend to think a lot alike. I'm going to share, we're talking to Paul Stone, pro bettor from Texas, specializing in college football, but I'm going to share with you right now the discount code. 20% off all picks packages now through the weekend. All you have to do is go to pritchardspicks.com, sign up, whether it's the Pritchard's Pick of the Day. It is good for reoccurring, whether it's weekly, daily, monthly, seasonal, or annual. The discount code to use for the 20% discount, DUCKS, as in the Oregon Ducks, 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 get you 20% off. Are you kidding me? Scott Pritchard, pro bettor, 31 years, founder of pritchardspicks.com. You're listening to Let's Bet, and my guest this week, recurring guest, Paul Stone, pro bettor from Texas, specializing in college football. I've often said that you have to have thick skin and a short memory if you're doing what Paul and I do on a consistent long-term basis. You cannot win if you are afraid to lose. So I'm going to come back. We're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with best bets. Paul has not one, not two, but 3 college winners versus the number on Saturday. And because we're broadcasting live today on Friday, he has 1 winner for you tonight, because I know some of you just can't wait. I'm going to delve into pro football on Sunday. We'll come back with best bets right after this.
Hi, I'm Beth Raymer. I'm writer and author of Lay the Favorite, a memoir of gambling. I had so much fun being on Scott Pritchard's show today. So thanks for having me, Scott. Let's bet.
That was last week's guest, Beth Raymer, my friend, dear friend. Met her in 2001 at Dink's Sports Betting Office. What a great guest. The feedback on YouTube, overwhelming. Beth, as you know, famous author, famous writer, was a nobody when I met her back in 2001. And she went on to take the sports betting information that she learned and parlayed into to a sports betting book called Lay the Favorite and parlayed that into a major motion picture where Rebecca Hall plays Beth. Bruce Willis played my late great friend Dink. Vince Vaughn played the bookmaker from Queens, New York. And Catherine Zeta-Jones played Dink's wife at the time. So how cool is that? Beth was on last week. Check it out on YouTube. Check out the movie, Lay the Favorite, sports betting movie on YouTube for free. You cannot beat the price. Coupon code again, DUCKS for the 20% off all picks and packages. My guest on Let's Bet this week, Paul Stone. Pro bettor from Texas, took first in the Golden Nugget Invitational years ago. I know firsthand because I took second. What I can do, Paul can do better. Circa Invitational right now, I'm in the top 10 after taking third place a year ago, cashing some money. Love the Circa, the world's largest, the world's best sports book. Paul, when we talk about sports betting, before we get to best bets, when we talk about sports betting, you cannot win unless you cannot be afraid to lose. Okay, you cannot win if you are afraid to lose. How do you? Because losing is part of it, and this is a very humbling business. On my best day, I know I'm going to be wrong 40 to 45% of the time. It's a very, very humbling experience, and just when you are on a major winning streak, 4, 5, 6 games in a row, you can't be beat. You refuse to lose, and then you lose by 30. Are you kidding me? How do you handle losses emotionally as well as financially?
Like all of us, sometimes probably not very well, but I try not to be. I'm a pretty level-headed person. I think a lot of sports bettors, just by their nature, are high-strung and emotional, and they just take every punch right on the chin, flush on the chin. And you really can't do that if you're doing this day in and day out like you and I do. I mean, college basketball that started week and a half ago, it is a grind. It is so many peaks and valleys and ups and downs. I started out, I think 4-10 this season, and 3 nights this week, I've gone 3-0. So I'm back over 500 now. And it's just an emotional roller coaster. So you have to really be strong-willed. You can't go too low with the losses, and you certainly can't get too high or too confident with the wins. I just work hard all the time. I just keep my foot on the gas, all gas, no brakes mentality. I always talk about the wolf's always at the door. Doesn't matter if you've won 4 in a row, you've lost 4 in a row. I hear something, it's the wolf. He's at the door. I better put a chair in front of it or something. So it's a difficult challenge. And I think the emotional side of sports betting, along with the money management, I think they kind of work together, because I think sometimes people, when they lose, they take this mentality or this frame of mind that, well, I can't continue to lose. I'm going to win the next one. And they display poor money management habits, and they get in more trouble. So I think those things, mastering money management and the emotional and psychological side of daily sports betting, are the 2 biggest challenges that we face. It's very, very difficult, and you've got to be in it for the long haul, and you have to be too. We hear it all the time. I want to add this. You have to be process oriented, not results oriented. There's games all the time where I say it, I try to be very detached from it and not thinking that I'm the greatest thing since sliced bread. I say to myself all the time, I was fortunate to win that game, to cover that game. I didn't deserve it. I know those things will even out, but you have to be, again, more process oriented. When you're losing or winning, you have to examine your process, how you're doing things, the statistical data that you're referencing, the amount of time that you're putting in, just the whole A to Z spectrum of pieces of information that goes into our process. So you got to keep your head on straight. You can't take every punch square on the chin, and you got to look at it from a long-term perspective and be process oriented.
I like what you say and how you say it. Win, lose, or draw, be objective, tweak, retweak, wins and losses. Even if you win, look back and say, wow, I was fortunate. Okay, one time I got lucky. All right, it's time now for best bets on this show, because you, the viewer, asked for it, and we have responded. A few short weeks I started doing best bets on Let's Bet. Me, along with my guests, we're going to dive into Paul Stone's top 4 plays for the weekend. 1 play tonight, 3 plays for Saturday. I've got an NFL game for Sunday, but first let's recap what I did last weekend. I am now 7-3 after giving out under in the Utah game last week, under 40.5. Looking good, feeling good until a late score. Hate it when that happens. So I'm now 7-3 versus the point spread. Paul Stone, 1 play tonight, 3 plays Saturday. Who do you like and why?
Okay, I'll start out with the game, of course, tonight. We're going to drive out to Tucson, Arizona, Scott, and look at this Big 12 matchup. Houston coming to play the University of Arizona. Arizona laying 1.5. These are 2 teams, in my opinion, going in opposite directions. First of all, you have Arizona. They were picked to finish 5th in the very balanced Big 12. Actually got 3 first-place votes during media days out there in Las Vegas back in July. But it's been a disappointing season, to say the least. They're 3-6 on the season, is Arizona. They're probably not going to a bowl game. And they have lost and failed to cover 5 straight games. And their non-covers in these 5 straight games have not even been close. They have failed to cover their last 5 games by an average of 22 points. All of those non-covers have been by double digits. I think Arizona's kind of mailed it in. Houston getting better. They've won 3 out of their last 4 under first-year head coach Willie Fritz. I like Houston plus 1.5 over Arizona. We'll shift to Saturday if you want me to just go into these 3 on tomorrow, the 16th. We're going to look at the Sun Belt Conference because we can find winners anywhere. It doesn't have to be the SEC or the Big Ten. This is a game, James Madison traveling to Norfolk, Virginia to play Old Dominion. I really like the job. The results have not been great, but fifth year head coach there at Old Dominion, Ricky Ronnie, he's really done a great job. They always does Old Dominion seem to exceed expectations. They were picked this year to finish 6th in the Sun Belt Conference's 7-team East Division, but here they are tied for 2nd at 3-2 with James Madison, just 1 game behind co-leaders Georgia Southern and Marshall. And Ronnie and Old Dominion, they've certainly been at their best when cast as a home underdog. Since the start of 2023, they've won 7 games outright as the home underdog. They're 13-4 as a home underdog since 2022. I like Old Dominion. It was 3. It's now only 2.5. So we're going to say 2.5. Give me Old Dominion plus 2.5 at home over James Madison. Then a Big Ten game. Illinois favored, short favorite by 2.5 over Michigan State. I actually made this line Illinois -6. So looking at Illinois favored by only 2.5, the home field advantage is about 3 or 3.5. This line basically infers that Michigan State would either be picked or perhaps a small favorite on a neutral field. And I think even though these teams are similar, I think Illinois is a better club than Michigan State. Their quarterback, Luke Altmaier, had interception problems last year, but only 3 picks in 250 attempts this year. They got 2 real good receivers in Pat Bryant and Zachary Franklin. I like Illinois -2.5 over Michigan State. And then we're not going to forget about those Notre Dame Fighting Irish playing tomorrow in South Bend, Indiana against Virginia, currently favored by 22 points over the Cavaliers. Notre Dame's obviously rebounded nicely since losing in week 2, shockingly losing 16-14 as a 28-point favorite. If they win out, they're going to be in the 12-team playoff. You look at their opponent on Saturday, again, Virginia, they enter this game with a 5-4 record. They're going to have to either upset Notre Dame, SMU, or Virginia Tech, all 3 good clubs, to gain bowl eligibility. So they're going to be going all out. They're going to be double digits in all 3 of their final 3 games here. They've been at their best, though, against the better opponents on their schedule. First of all, they're coming off a 24-19 victory at Pittsburgh as a 7-point underdog. They actually led Louisville late before losing 24-20 a couple of weeks back. And then they got a backdoor cover against Clemson. Only lost that game 48-31. So I like Virginia. I think they're going to keep it within 3 touchdowns. Give me Virginia plus 22 over Notre Dame.
Paul Stone, pro bettor based out of Texas. His 4 best college football plays: Virginia plus the 22, the Fighting Illini of Illinois -2.5, Old Dominion plus 2.5. Tonight, Houston at Arizona. Houston plus 1.5. I've got one play one time. It's not many you bet. It's how many you win. I'm going to get off the total, and I'm going to get off the point spread. I'm going to go with the cheap money line. I like the Ravens on the road against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Baltimore favored by 3. Lay 55 cents on the Ravens. See the cashier. Here's why. The Pittsburgh Steelers, the news is they have not won a single division game the entire season. Why is that? I'm glad you asked. They haven't played a division game. Are you kidding me? We're going into week 11. We have 6 division games. They have not played Baltimore once or twice, Cincinnati once or twice, Cleveland once or twice. Watch and learn. This team is in for a rude awakening. Yeah, they have 2 losses the entire season. That's the good news. Watch and learn. This team is going to plummet and plummet hard. You heard it here first. Actually, you've been hearing it all year. The Steelers are going to tank. Not intentionally, just because of stiff competition. The Ravens are the better team, better defense, better offense. I like their coach. I don't like going against Mike Tomlin. I think he's one of the absolute best coaches in the history of the game for the Steelers. But give me the Ravens. All I have to do is win the game, and that means winner, winner, steak and lobster dinner. Baltimore to win the game straight up, minus 55 cents on the money line. There you have it. Best bets, 4 college winners from Paul Stone, 1 NFL, 1 and done for me, Scott Pritchard, founder of Pritchard'sPicks.com, home of Pritchard's Pick of the Day. As we wrap things up, Paul Stone, want to thank you for being on the show as a repeated guest. Where can people find you, my friend?
Well, first of all, I try to stay active on Twitter or X, Scott, and my handle on Twitter at Paul Stone Sports. And if they want to take their interest one step further, my website, paulstonesports.org. Again, that's paulstonesports.org.
Paul Stone, pro bettor from Texas, specializing in college football with not 1, not 2, not 6, but 4 winners for this weekend, including tonight's game, taking Houston plus 1.5 on the road against Arizona. He likes Virginia plus the points, Illinois minus 2.5, Old Dominion plus 2.5. I like the Ravens on the money line Sunday at the Pittsburgh Steelers. To reach out to us, email us at letsbet@pritchardspicks.com. That's letsbet@pritchardspicks.com. The coupon code for 20% off, applicable through the weekend, Ducks, as in the Oregon Ducks. 20% off all picks, all plays. For my guest, Paul Stone, my name is Scott Pritchard. Until next weekend, see the cashier.